In 2023, Carlos Tavares earned $39.5 million. That was a 56% raise from the year before. The board of the company he ran approved it unanimously. 1 year later, that same company posted a $25.9 billion loss. This is Stellantis, the car company most people can't name that owns the brands everyone recognizes: Jeep, Ram, Dodge, Chrysler, Fiat, Peugeot, Citroën, Alfa Romeo, Maserati. 14 brands, 250,000 employees, 30 countries. The third largest automaker in the world by volume. In 2025, it recorded one of the largest corporate losses in automotive history. The story that gets told about Stellantis is about a CEO who cut too deep and a board that looked away for too long. That part is true. But the deeper problem was already there on the day the company was born. And nobody wanted to say it out loud, because saying it meant admitting that the structure itself was the crisis. To understand that, you have to go back to January 2021 and the merger that was supposed to fix everything. Fiat Chrysler and PSA Group had been struggling separately for years. FCA, the company behind Jeep, Ram, Dodge, and Chrysler, was almost entirely dependent on its US truck and SUV business, with almost no competitive presence in Europe. PSA, the French giant behind Peugeot, Citroën, and Opel, had been bleeding money for years before Tavares turned it around, and had no meaningful footprint in North America. The logic of combining them was clean. Share platforms, cut duplicate engineering, use FCA's American cash flow to fund PSA's European restructuring, use PSA's cost discipline to make FCA's brands more efficient. Together they'd have scale, global reach, and the resources to compete in a market that was consolidating fast. Tavares was the man who'd saved PSA. He'd taken a company close to insolvency in 2014 and made it one of the most efficient automakers in Europe inside 4 years. The board handed him Stellantis and told him to do it again. And for a while, it worked. In 2022, Stellantis posted a 13% operating margin, higher than Ford, higher than GM, higher than Volkswagen. In 2023, they hit $20 billion in net profit. While every other legacy automaker was writing down billions on EV bets that hadn't paid off yet, Stellantis was the boring profitable one, the one Wall Street pointed to as proof that old car companies could still compete. Nobody looked too hard at how the margin was being made. Tavares ran Stellantis the way private equity runs a turnaround. Cut engineering headcount, squeeze suppliers, hold product launches until the numbers look right, rather than until the products are ready. Push dealers to take inventory they hadn't ordered. That playbook generates margin. It doesn't build anything that lasts. In North America, the market that funds the entire company, the cracks started appearing in places the quarterly reports didn't cover. The Jeep Wrangler 4xe is a $65,000 plug-in hybrid. Jeep's proof that it could survive electrification without losing the identity that makes it worth $65,000 in the first place. Owners started posting videos of their Wranglers being towed to dealerships before they'd completed a single long road trip. Engines shutting down on highways, powertrains needing complete replacement at 15,000 miles. For a truck sold on the promise of going anywhere and surviving anything, the Wrangler 4X was struggling to survive its own warranty period. Meanwhile, Stellantis had pushed Ram 1500 prices so aggressively that a well-equipped truck was touching $80,000. Ram had been the #2 truck in America for years, built on the loyalty of contractors and tradespeople who bought the same brand again because it never let them down. Those buyers looked at $80,000 and bought a Ford instead. Then came the recall. 700,000 vehicles. Jeep, Ram, Chrysler. A fault in the anti-lock brake system that could cause a short circuit in the engine compartment, while the vehicle was parked, while the owner was asleep. Stellantis sent notices telling owners to park outside, away from structures, until the fix was available. The truck built for adventure might catch fire in your driveway overnight. The dealers had been watching all of this happen in real time, and in September 2024, they stopped staying quiet. A group of Stellantis dealers published an open letter to Carlos Tavares, not a private meeting, not a conference call with the regional sales team. A letter made public, accusing the CEO of short-term decision-making that was destroying brands they had spent their lives building. The letter detailed exactly what was happening on the ground. Dealers forced to accept inventory they hadn't ordered. Sticker prices set so high that customers were walking out of showrooms. Marketing budgets cut so deeply that people had simply forgotten Stellantis brands existed. Jeep sales in the United States dropped 34% between 2018 and 2024. That number needs context. The SUV market wasn't shrinking. The Ford Bronco had a year-long waiting list. The Toyota 4Runner was selling every unit it could build. The customers were there, buying from everyone except Jeep. Jeep hadn't lost its identity. It had lost its investment. The brand that was supposed to be Stellantis' most valuable asset in North America had been stripped of the marketing, the dealer relationships, and the product development that made people choose it over everything else. The letter didn't fix anything, but it made the fracture visible to everyone who hadn't been paying attention. Here is what nobody inside Stellantis was willing to say, because saying it meant admitting the entire premise of the company was wrong. When you merge 14 car brands, you don't get one company that makes 14 kinds of cars. You get 14 engineering cultures, 14 dealer networks, 14 histories, and 14 sets of customer expectations, all being told to share resources with competitors they spent decades trying to beat. Jeep's identity is off-road capability. Ram's identity is truck loyalty. Working buyers who hand the brand to their kids because it never let them down. You cannot optimize those identities away for a shared platform and a better operating margin. The moment you start making those trade-offs, you're not cutting costs. You're borrowing against the only thing those brands actually own, the trust of the people who chose them. At the same time, Stellantis' European brands were fighting a completely different battle, not against each other. Against Chinese manufacturers entering the market with EVs priced $10,000 to $15,000 below anything Stellantis could build at a profit. The company was being squeezed from two directions at once, and the response, cut more, push more inventory, delay more launches, was the same move that had generated $20 billion in profit, now applied to a situation where it made everything worse. By December 2024, the board had made its decision, not about the strategy. The board had approved every piece of the strategy. What changed was that the numbers which had justified everything for 3 years were now moving fast in the wrong direction, and Tavares no longer had a credible answer for when they'd turn around. He resigned on December 9th. No successor named, no transition plan, a statement about differences of opinion, and an exit that had clearly been building for months. The company was now leaderless, sitting on inventory nobody could afford, with a product pipeline that was, by Stellantis' own later admission, a year behind schedule and dealer relationships that had been publicly hostile for 3 months. When the 2025 numbers landed, $25.9 billion in losses. The company that had posted $20 billion in profit 2 years earlier had swung $46 billion in the wrong direction in 24 months. Tavares walked away with his compensation package intact. The board that had approved every decision kept their seats. The structure that had produced the crisis remained exactly as it was. The plan that replaced Tavares is called a restart. $70 billion through 2030, 60 new models, new platforms, new leadership across nearly every brand. On a 2026 earnings call, the new team laid out the timeline. 2026 is the reset year. 2027 is when the numbers start turning. 2028 is when they expect to be competitive again. The new management has been more honest about what went wrong than any Stellantis executive had been publicly willing to be before. They've acknowledged the pricing mistakes. They've said the dealers were right. They've pledged to rebuild supplier relationships that Tavares spent 3 years squeezing for pennies. That's all credible. It also requires 3 years of flawless execution from a company that hasn't executed flawlessly on anything since the merger was signed. Across 14 brands, 30 countries, and 250,000 employees who have never successfully coordinated instead of competed. The money is real. The question is whether the structure that receives it can spend it wisely. Stellantis isn't a story about one bad CEO. Carlos Tavares made decisions that the board approved, that analysts applauded, and that produced record margins for 2 consecutive years. The problem wasn't the decisions. It was what the decisions were optimizing for. You can cut costs, squeeze suppliers, delay launches, and push dealers to take cars they can't sell. And the quarterly reports will tell you you're winning right up until the moment you're not. And when you're not, when the engines are failing at 15,000 miles, and the dealers are writing public letters, and the recalls are for trucks that might catch fire while you sleep. The structure that produced the crisis is the same one you're counting on to fix it. 14 brands that spent decades competing with each other didn't become a family because someone put them in the same holding company. They became 14 sets of problems wearing one name. The $70 billion might work. The new leadership might pull it off. But if they do, it won't be because they spent enough money. It'll be because they finally understood that the merger was never a strategy. It was just the problem with better branding. If this is the kind of story you want more of, subscribe. There's more.